Hi, this is my reflection for video number 4, standards 6, 7, and 8.
Okay, let's start with standard 6 about assessment. So let's first brief about what kind of assessments you use during the lesson.
So, we had a formative assessment in the beginning, which was checking for understanding in what they had learned so far about the weather. And it was supposed to be a flashcard Q&A, but I forgot somehow the flashcards got lost, but we still did it. And then we had a summative assessment center where they had to sort out clothes for different types of weather.
Um,
And we had an exit ticket summative assessment, which they had to name the weather and throw a beanbag into the umbrella and go.
is there any assessment that you could have used differently or that you would have done differently?
Yes, I think for the assessment, the where they were sorting out the clothes, I would have made it a little bit more clear for them because it was a little bit hectic in that section because I could have cordoned it off a little bit better. It would have been more clear for them what they had to achieve in that. But we did have checklists, and from there we can see like which weather is still confusing for them, so we can work on that as we continue the topic.
Yeah. I was also thinking about the clothing sorting, that it was a really lovely idea and like super hands on. Um, maybe sitting them down first and going over what they need to do, and also something that also happens to me is that any time I try and do something in the kitchen, it's a little distracting, right? Yeah.
Good observation because that is one thing I definitely would have changed the environment
Yeah.
where I
They
did
just
that.
can't help themselves.
They cannot. And one student just kept folding the clothes.
Yeah,
I
that
don't know.
was so
They should be
sweet
so
though, but good
domesticated.
fine motors.
Yeah. So yeah, I would have changed that. It's just sometimes hard to put things
Yeah,
around the classroom.
we have limited space, that's for sure.
Okay.
And standard 6 also talks about providing timely feedback that can support their sorry understanding. And I think in the video we can see that while I was there in person, and that if a student is struggling or they need redirection, that you're always very quick to help them and support them.
Yes, that's also part of like the instructional strategies. So it's like something that was on top of mind. An area that I think I'm going to go with the reteaching is some of the lower level students did not understand certain like weathers even now like cloudy was a little bit complicated for them. They can't say thunder, lightning. So I am working on like pulling them during other centers to brush up on that vocabulary.
Yeah, it's always a fun idea when you're walking around the school. You can always look up at the sky and talk about the weather in real time, so they can connect the vocabulary to the world around them. And even this morning, I asked my students if they heard the thunderstorm last night, because we all got woken up at 4 a.m. to a big thunderstorm. Some of them heard it, and some of them said they were sleeping. But I always like to talk about the events like that with them to connect it to.
That's true. You did tell me that the best place to teach weather is outside. So in the mornings when we do our morning exploration time, that's when we take the weather wheel out.
Perfect.
Yeah. So it did work because now they're like talking about the cloudy weather. Yeah.
Let's move on to standard 7, which talks about the planning for instruction and being able to support all of your kiddos. Um, is there something that you thought that you did really well, or something that you think maybe you can work on?
I think that the customizing the story for them with things that are moving and it's not too much screen time works well because it draws their attention to one
Yeah.
place. I also noticed that every time you do a demonstration on the mat, it causes everybody to cave in. So that's when I use that little
Yeah, that
camera,
was super cool.
yeah, to show them.
I have the same issue.
Yeah, and so that alleviated some of that. So I'm gonna definitely keep
Use
using
that.
that.
Yeah.
I need to find a way in which I can set that up more in a more streamlined process because I don't want all these like 10 to 20 seconds on the mat that gets lost is detrimental to this age group. So I can,
Hard to bring them back.
yeah, I can feel that happening. So I want to be able to streamline the use of technology.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good stepping point for
Mm.
to improve. Um, and we can talk about your like instructional approaches. I think your class does a really good job with center rotation. The kids all know what group to go in, and you have an adult at every center to keep them engaged in practicing the vocabulary or the learning goal for that activity.
Yes, and I thought like the one center was very self-explanatory. So I didn't have to let Pion know a lot about what she needs to talk about. But however, the sensory bin, because it's an open communication area, I had a checklist for them that Miss Moore was doing. And I told her like a few questions. I gave her the discussion questions. So she can be heard like actually
Yeah,
asking them questions.
and I heard some of the kids when they were in the sensory bin, they said, "Oh, the water going up," and then they dumped it, and they said, "The water go down."
Yay!
So that's yeah.
So they got it.
hmm
Okay, let's move on to standard 8 instructional strategies.
Um, for standard 8, we can talk about how do you think that you um, meet all of your students' needs, and what different techniques do you use to make sure that every student is learning?
I had my co-teacher on standby for translating into their language, but I think that the language was already simple enough, so that's always available for them. And using different ways in which to like a variety of ways to communicate the content. So we did the video and then I did the experiment and then they worked on the exact same thing in the sentence.
Yeah.
So it gives them like a variety of touch points.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I do also is like the criteria, like their rubric is adjusted for each for the level for the different levels. So I'm not expecting my lower level students to be talking full sentences about the water
Right.
cycle, but I'm definitely expecting it from my higher level students, and those are the ones that ticked most of the boxes. Then I would walk around the room, but I have someone at each of the centers. And what happens is when we talk about what happened in that lesson afterwards, I will know who I need to work with, and then maybe I will adjust who's at the centers with me for longer at the next in the next opportunity.
Yeah, that's good to have the good communication with everybody on your team. And I know earlier when we were debriefing, we were talking about like being more collaborative with your co-teacher. So maybe you want to talk about that a little.
Yeah, so maybe I think as we go into the new year, for the next academic year, it will be more intentional in like how we incorporate our teaching together. So making sure that when instruction time is being implemented, that the my co-teacher is sitting next to me, not in on the outskirts, so that they can see that we are one team, and then planning together so that we can figure out how we're going to get the message across and what would be the best way to use each other in the room in
Yeah,
the
talk
lesson.
about yeah. We've been talking at our school because we are the co-teaching school, and some of us are all new to it. So it's like the goal of our whole school is how to be a better collaborator.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.